Hey everyone, it's Jabber. Today we're talking about something that sounds boring on paper, but it's your wallet in real life. Canada's latest GDP numbers. Canada Statistics just reported that the economy grew by 5% in April, which is the strongest monthly growth since July of 2025. That's after we had 2 quarters of contraction and lots of talk about Canada slipping into technical recession. So the headline is economic rebound, but the real story is why the rebound and whether this changes anything for regular people trying to pay rent and groceries, or maybe think about a house someday. Let's start with the basic GDP, gross domestic product. Basically, the scoreboard for the economy. In April, the GDP rose 0.5%, beating Stats Canada's early estimate of zero point 0.4. What's interesting is this wasn't just a one sector driving everything up growth. It was broad based. Manufacturing gains, construction finally saw increases, transportation, warehousing, public sector like healthcare, education, public administration also grew. So this isn't just a single industry spike, it's more like an economic talking, taking a collective deep breath after a sluggish start to the year. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, oil and gas. Stats Canada points out that the oil and gas extraction surged in April, helped by a higher synthetic crude oil production. Earlier in the year, unscheduled maintenance had held the growth, and now the production is back online. It's giving GDP a noticeable boost. On top of that, exports of refined petroleum jumped almost 70% year over year because global prices have been pushed higher by conflict in the Middle East and disrupts like closures in the Strait of Hormuz. So part of the rebound is Canada's riding the wave of global energy stress. That's good for GDP numbers, but also means higher energy prices for consumers and businesses. Construction finally showed a zero point 0.7 gain in its first increase in 5 months. That's a small number, but symbolically it matters. Construction has been under pressure from high interest rates and slower housing activity. Real estate agents and brokers also had a busier April with first growth in subsectors since August 2025, driven by stronger home sales in the Greater Toronto Area. So while affordability is still a massive issue, we're seeing signs that buyers are creeping back into the markets, at least in some regions. Here, why, are we actually in a recession? That would be a big no. Here's a big question. Are we actually in a recession or not? And technically, Canada saw 2 consecutive quarters of GDP contractions in late 2025 and the first quarter of 2026, which triggered talk of the technical recession. But many economists argue that calling it a full-blown recession was premature. Now, with April 0.5% growth, Stats Canada early estimates of 0.1% growth in May, some economists are saying this is a rebound shows Canada is not in a recession, more like a sluggish growth environment. The verdict right now, the economy is weak but not collapsing. Growth is happening but below potential. This rebound is more of a correction after the winter lull than a full on boom. Okay, numbers are cute, but what does this mean if you're just trying to live life? Broad-based growth across sectors is better than narrow energy-only story. It suggests jobs are more stable in multiple industries, not just oil or gas. Busier housing markets in places like the GTA can mean more competition and potentially higher prices, but it also signals that the market isn't frozen. Central bankers look at GDP, inflation, and labor data together. A rebound like this doesn't automatically mean rate hikes, but it does make it hard to justify aggressively cutting if the economy is still chugging along, even slowly. Higher global energy prices can feed the transport, food, and heating costs, so if the GDP is up, you might still feel the squeeze. So Canada's economics just posted its strongest month in growth in a while, powered by oil and gas, supporting manufacturers and construction. In the public sector, nudged along by a slight livelier housing market. Is this the start of a real recovery or just a temporary bounce before we go back to crawling? That's the debate. I want to hear your take. Do these numbers match what you're feeling in your own life? Job security, bills, and housing? Do you think Canada is in a recession? Or is it just a slow, grinding economy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like, subscribe to PDSN, and share this with someone who keeps hearing GDP on the news. Never get it and never gets explained in plain language. And we'll see you again.